Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a legal battle that could literally rewrite the rules of the internet. The Federal Trade Commission, teaming up with 17 state attorneys general, has dropped a massive antitrust lawsuit on Amazon. And look, this isn't just some dry regulatory spat in Washington. This is a trial that could completely flip how we shop online, what we pay at checkout, and exactly how fast those boxes show up on our doorsteps.
So right off the bat, here's the wild paradox we're unpacking today. On one hand, you've got government regulation pushing hard for market fairness and trying to shut down what they see as monopolistic bullying. But on the other hand, there's a very real chance that ripping apart Amazon's current model could actually cost you, the everyday consumer, the exact convenience and low prices you've kind of built your life around. Let's dig into the data, the economics, and the legal arguments from both sides to figure out what's really at stake for your wallet.
Section 1. The everyday shopper's reality. The convenience we take for granted.
Let's start right where you and I live, our actual day-to-day shopping experience. Think about the e-commerce world we live in right now. We've totally normalized the absolute magic of one-click buying, next day, or hey, even same-day delivery. This endless selection of basically anything you could ever want, and really heavily optimized low prices. It's incredibly convenient, right? But to understand why the FTC is suing, we've got to pop the hood on this convenience and look at the economic engine that actually makes it all possible.
Section 2. Unpacking two-sided markets. The economic engine behind the platform.
To really get what's going on, we have to zoom out for a second to some macroeconomic theory. Big tech platforms like Amazon don't run like your local grocery or department store. They operate in what economists call two-sided markets. Basically, the platform acts as a critical middleman. Amazon isn't just selling you stuff, it's running a massive digital arena that connects two distinct groups. On one side, you have millions of independent sellers. On the other side, you've got millions of everyday shoppers.
And this whole setup relies on something called cross-platform network effects. It's like a giant digital dance. Buyers obviously want to hang out on the platform with the most sellers, so they get the best selection. Meanwhile, sellers desperately want to be on the platform with the most buyers so they can actually move their products. But that sets up a classic chicken and egg problem. When you're building a platform, how on earth do you attract both groups at the exact same time?
Well, the economic fix for that problem is actually fascinating. Platforms will often justify operating at a huge loss, essentially subsidizing one side of the market just to build up that network. Think about cheap, or supposedly free, prime shipping for buyers. From an economic view, if you set prices way below cost for the buyers, it sparks massive demand. That crazy demand then lures all the sellers over to the platform. Boom, you've solved the chicken and egg problem, and you've built this inescapable self-feeding network that Amazon famously calls its flywheel.
Section 3. The FTC's Antitrust Paradox, a paradigm shift in defining monopoly power.
Now this is where the ground is literally shifting under our feet legally. We're watching a massive paradigm shift in how the government defines a monopoly, and it's being driven largely by current FTC Chair Lina Khan. For decades, antitrust law was ruled by the Chicago School of Economics and something called the Consumer Welfare Standard. The logic there was super simple. If a company's moves result in lower short-term prices for us consumers, then it's all good, and the government should back off. Under that old framework, Amazon aggressively cutting prices was actually celebrated. But the new standard the FTC is pushing is structural or process-based. This view says, hold on, we can't just look at cheap prices. We need to look at whether a company has gobbled up so much structural dominance and infrastructure that it ruins the whole competitive process itself. And you know what's wild? This entire shift traces back to a single academic paper. Back in 2017, while she was still just a law student, Lina Khan published Amazon's Antitrust Paradox in the Yale Law Journal. She basically argued that the old price-focused framework was completely blind to how modern platform power actually works. Because platforms are the critical middlemen, integrating themselves into every line of business lets them control the very infrastructure their own rivals need to survive. Fast forward to today, and she's running the FTC, applying that exact same theory.
So what exactly is the FTC accusing Amazon of? Well, they've come out swinging with some highly specific claims. First, they're saying Amazon uses algorithms to basically run surveillance on prices all over the internet. If a seller dares to offer their product for cheaper on another website, Amazon allegedly punishes them by burying their search results or taking away their buy box button. Second, the FTC claims Amazon essentially forces sellers to use its own logistics network, Fulfillment by Amazon, or FBA. Third, they're alleging Amazon makes shopping worse by swapping out real search results for paid junk ads. And lastly, they claim Amazon is squeezing sellers dry, taking up to 50% of their total revenues and fees just to let them keep their digital doors open.
The FTC is absolutely unyielding on this. As Chair Khan sees it, Amazon's legendary flywheel isn't a consumer benefit anymore. It's morphed into an illegal, exclusionary trap. Their stance is that Amazon has grabbed so much power across the online retail space and the seller services market that they're now just actively hurting everyone by inflating prices across the board and giving us a worse service.
Section 4. Logistics, the hidden monopoly, the battle over physical infrastructure and global trade.
And that brings us to a huge battleground in this lawsuit, the physical side of Amazon's power. We aren't just talking about code and websites anymore. We're talking about a mammoth delivery network. Just look at this number, 390,000. That's roughly the number of delivery drivers operating under Amazon's delivery service partner network. This is a sprawling physical bottleneck for global trade. Amazon managed to scale this up by giving branding and tech to thousands of independent logistics companies, which let them expand at light speed without taking on the direct liability of hiring all those drivers themselves.
The big issue here is how Amazon allegedly flexes this physical muscle. The FTC argues that if you're a seller and you want to actually make money, you basically have to be Prime eligible. You need that badge. And to get that Prime badge, the FTC claims Amazon forces you into using its own FBA logistics network. By tying the Prime badge to their specific delivery vans, the FTC says Amazon makes it way too expensive for sellers to multi-home, meaning a seller just can't afford to list their products on Amazon while simultaneously selling on Walmart or Shopify, which essentially starves Amazon's rivals of inventory.
Section 5. The case for Amazon, professional viewpoints, and the economic defense.
Now we have to look at the other side of the coin impartially, because Amazon, along with plenty of professional economists and legal experts, strongly pushes back on all of this. Critics of the lawsuit actually point out this fascinating contradiction they call the Kahn v. Kahn paradox. Back in her famous 2017 paper, Kahn was arguing that Amazon was acting like a monopoly because its prices were artificially low to bleed out competitors. But jump to the 2023 FTC complaint, and the agency is arguing basically the exact opposite, that Amazon is anti-competitive because it artificially inflates retail prices. For their part, Amazon defends its pricing by saying, hey, we just refuse to promote bad deals, which is literally standard retail practice if you want to keep your customers trusting you.
And what about that giant delivery network? Well, economic defenders point out that Amazon's delivery system operates at roughly 70% of the cost of traditional carriers like FedEx or UPS. They argue that building a system this insanely efficient and weaving it into the platform isn't some antitrust crime. It's a huge pro-competitive win for everyone. Charging lower prices because you built a superior delivery service, that's exactly what capitalism and competition are supposed to look like.
Plus, economists are waving a big red flag about the unintended consequences of breaking Amazon up. Remember what we talked about earlier with two-sided markets? Amazon sells a lot of its own products as loss leaders just to get buyers in the door. If the government steps in and legally forces Amazon to chop its retail business apart from its marketplace, Amazon wouldn't be able to rely on seller fees to cover those losses anymore. The immediate fallout? Amazon would very likely have to jack up the prices on the stuff it sells directly. And without those cheap deals drawing millions of us in, the newly separated marketplace suddenly becomes way less attractive to the exact independent sellers the FTC is trying to protect. Section 6. What it means for you. The final tally for the everyday shopper.
So let's bring this massive legal and economic clash right back down to your wallet and your everyday life. This trial is slated for 2026, and the stakes could not be higher. If the FTC wins, we might see a forced unbundling of Amazon. That could potentially level the playing field, drop the fees for independent sellers, and let rival platforms really take off, giving you way more diverse options for shopping online. But if Amazon wins, the current system is preserved. You get to keep your subsidized rapid delivery, that incredibly integrated logistics network, and the absolute centralized convenience that Prime gives you today.
And that leaves us with the million-dollar question. Will the government's pursuit of structural market fairness ultimately end up costing you the convenience and the low prices you've totally come to rely on? Is it actually possible that the system that looks exactly like a monopoly on a legal pad is really the most efficient, cheapest outcome for you, the consumer, in reality? It is a massive tightrope walk between protecting the competitive process and keeping consumer perks alive. And whatever the courts decide will absolutely define how we shop online for a generation. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes on this case. It is definitely going to be a historic ride.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe.
Don't forget to hit that notification bell.